very small private practice. I have a very few patients who I see who are homebound, so I just make home visits for them when they need to see me. But I'm not practicing full time anymore uh, because I found that I can do so much more good doing things like this. Because for the last 4 or 5 decades, we have been severely misled, and I don't think it was intentional. I think a few erroneous ideas became very popular for a variety of reasons, which we can go into, but they misled us. And so basically, science and nutrition and medicine, there's one truth at the end of the path, right? There is ultimately a spectrum of a proper human diet that we should all be eating, and that if we all eat, we're gonna gain health improvements from it up to a certain maximal limit, right? We all have an optimal health that's as good as it gets for us. Considering our genetics, considering our gut microbiome, considering the environment we live in, our stress levels, how good our sleep is. But many of us have been misled by healthcare providers and nutrition counselors, and it's because they were also misled. And so it is the ultimate case of the blind leading the blind right into the ditch of disease and disability. That's what's been going on. I don't think there's a big conspiracy. I think there are some people who, if they're like, "Ooh, let's just keep quiet about carbohydrates and talk about saturated fat a lot because, I own a cereal company and everything I make is made out of grains and sugar. So if we just don't encourage anybody to talk about carbohydrates, then I'll make more millions of dollars." In that respect, I do think there is some conspiratorial thinking going on in the boardrooms by CEOs. But the average doctor, the average dietitian, the average nutritionist, there's no conspiracy there. They just were mistaught and misled. And when they give you erroneous dietary advice, they're doing it with the best of intentions. They're doing it with a pure heart. They're doing it because they believe that that's going to help you have a healthier life, but they're just wrong. And I used to be one of those doctors. I used to be 100% the doctor 15 years ago who would have come into your room. You have Hashimoto's, you're overweight, you're pre-diabetic. I'd be like, "Look, it's very simple. You just got to eat less and move more. You got to join the gym. You got to join Weight Watchers. You got to eat lots of whole grains and avoid saturated fat." I was that guy until I became morbidly obese and pre-diabetic following my own advice. And it was at that point that I had to look in the mirror and say, "Oh, guess what, Dr. Berry? You're evidently full of shit. Either you're a special case or you've been giving thousands of people terrible dietary advice." And so now looking back, that's exactly what I was doing. I was giving atrocious dietary advice and lifestyle advice. It was terrible. The only tool I really knew how to use was my prescription pad, right? I could write you a prescription for 15 different medicines. I was good at that. I knew all the latest medications. I knew probably more drug interactions than the average doctor. I knew if I gave you this medication for hypertension, it was also help with edema and it would also protect you. I knew all these things. But when it came to just the care and feeding of the average human being living their life, I was sorely undereducated. But here's the danger. Not only was I undereducated, but I was also proud and haughty and self-absorbed. So I thought that I couldn't be saying things that were wrong. I don't do that. I'm Dr. Berry. I say things that are right. And so not only would I give you this bad advice, I would give it to you with authority. And I would give it to you with a good heart, with full intentions that I thought what I was telling you was going to improve your health. And that's very dangerous, right? But it's not the same kind of danger as if a doctor was just trying to kill a patient and said, "Oh, you just need to go home and eat all the bacon and all the red meats you can eat. That's what you need to do," thinking that that's going to harm the patient. Actually, that would help the patient, not harm them, right? But at that time, I wasn't doing this out of any kind of ill will. I was doing it because I thought I was right. But now looking back, I feel like that's almost more dangerous than the alternative, right? I think that me giving that false information with a good heart, with good intentions, with believing that was true, I think that's actually very insidious and very dangerous, and that's why so many of us are sitting in the seat now with obesity, with prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver, chronic inappropriate inflammation, Hashimoto's. I think all these things are they're self-inflicted. But then we come to this other confusing thing. Yeah, it is self-inflicted, but it's not your fault, right? And that's another thing that I try to get people to understand. Even though it's not your fault, it's 100% still your problem. And so even though you have no blame for this, you've got the full responsibility of figuring this out on your own, because currently we can't trust the average doctor or the average dietitian because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They've been mistrained and misinformed, and they not only don't know that, they don't believe that. They believe that the American Heart Association and the American Diabetes Association are they think that's the mountain from on high from which we get the best nutrition advice in the world. And they're just wrong. And so I started out very slender in my teens and 20s. And in my early 30s, I started to fatten, as Gary Taubes would say. I started to gain weight, not muscle and bone, mind you, but blubber. I started to just become unhealthy, unwell, unhappy. I was inflamed. I was miserable. I was depressed. I was pissed off. And so at some point, when I got up to about almost 300 pounds and very pre-diabetic, severe heartburn, severe dandruff, skin tags all over my body, rosacea, chronic, almost disabling knee stiffness and pain every day from an old basketball injury. I was like, is this it? I mean, I'm 35 and I feel like warmed over shit every day, physically and mentally. That's how I felt every day. But then I was the guy going into exam rooms telling people how to feel good, how to be healthier, and how to get healthier. And I couldn't live with that incongruity. I couldn't live with that. I was like, dude, if you can't fix your own self, what right do you have to be taking other people's lives into your hands and saying, here, this is what you should do. It ain't working for me, but this is what you should do. And so I had to fix that. And that's when I kind of had an epiphany and started this journey of saying, well, wait a minute, let's re-examine everything I was taught about nutrition. Let's re-examine everything the ADA says and everything the AHA says. And that's what led me from there to here. And I want you guys to understand it's not your fault, but it's 100% your problem. You got to take charge of this. You got to own it. You got to accept. I was doing this to myself. I didn't know better, but I was the one doing it. But now I know better. And when you know better, I think that your goal becomes to do better. And that's where we're all at. And I think that's an admirable place to be, where you're like, whoa, let me re-examine everything. Because I've seen so many people who are doing low carb or keto or carnivore just be doing something dumb, right? They'll be eating good keto, but then they're eating 5 pounds of peanuts a day, or they're, and it's like, well, why are you doing that? Well, my mom always said, right? Or I saw a YouTube video, or I read an article in Women's Daily that said, and it's like, yeah, you don't get to do that anymore. You've got to re-examine every single thing you think you know about food, right? And a good example, once you're thoroughly eating a ketogenic diet, is when you realize I can't trust net carbs. I've got to count total carbs, because if I just count net carbs, all these keto manufacturers, right, like Slim Fast, and there's the keto bread now and all these keto things, they'll put the net carbs in bold letters right up on front of the package, won't they? But you got to turn it over and you got to look at the small print and go, oh crap, look at all the total carbs in here. Because some of that fiber is soluble, and some of that fiber definitely turns into carbohydrates and then breaks down into sugar. And again, it's not your fault, but it's your problem. And so that's why you got to be a detective when it comes to food labels. Better yet, just to eat foods that don't have a label. That way, it's really hard to fool you in that instance. So I'm happy to answer as many questions as you guys have. As you know, I'm a family physician, which means that I am broadly trained. And often family physicians aren't deeply trained in any particular subject, but they're very broadly trained. So I feel comfortable answering questions on a broad array of topics, but I also feel very comfortable in telling you, I don't know. You've reached the depth of my knowledge, and I'll tell you that immediately if you do that. So don't be offended by that or think, well, hell, he don't know anything. That's I think the ultimate admission of wisdom is to say, I don't know the answer to that. You're going to have to find another place to find that answer. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions from all comers, even that guy in the back corner.
So how about if you have a question, kind of sneak out that, because you're going to have to come down to here to talk. So just kind of sneak out. That way we kind of know how many to expect and how much time. I want to ask you first, Dr. Berry. I'm Monica Boyer. Tell him who you are. All right. Most of the people in this room have lost a lot of weight. Most of these ladies and gentlemen are frustrated because you are a hot commodity, because we don't have a voice for somebody to speak to nutrition. So could you speak to the group? How should we talk to our doctor? You have been so gracious to help some of my clients through some of the cholesterol issues and some of those things. What do we do if we don't have a physician like you? How do we speak to our doctor? What should the relationships with our current doctors be versus do we leave them? Where do we go for help, and how is the doctor-patient relationship? And then you'll kind of see him coming up if that's
Sure.
okay. Right?
Yep. So the first thing all you guys need to be aware of is that I have a YouTube video called How to Find a Low Carb Doctor Near You. And in the show notes of that video, I've got 6 different websites that have listings of doctors who understand and practice paleo, low carb, keto, carnivore. And so if you find a low carb doctor that's 2 hours from you, I promise you that's worth the drive, right? So that's a great resource, because there may be a low carb friendly doctor 30 minutes from your house, and you've never heard of them, you don't know about them, but they're on that website. So watch that video. Now let's talk about your doctor. So your relationship with your doctor, you need to look at it as a partnership. They are your learned health partner. That's what they are. They know more about medicine than you do. At least they better, right? But that does not mean they are infallible. That does not mean that they're in the stage of their practice like I was 15 years ago, where they haven't really ever considered human nutrition. They haven't really thought about it, right? All they know is the prescription drugs and the surgical treatments. That's really all they think about and all they know. And so if your doctor's currently like that, you've really got 2 options. Some doctors are educable. Some doctors, when they see you lose 30, 50, 100 pounds and reverse chronic diseases, they're still eager enough and they're still hungry enough for truth that they're like, what just happened here? And when you tell them, oh, I'm eating keto, I'm eating carnivore, I'm eating whatever, they're going to be like, and that's how you did this, by eating lots of bacon. You're not joking. You're being serious. And when they say, okay, well, let me look into this, when they start to look into it, and it's usually with a Google search, right? That's how they first look into it. They're going to find all these other low carb providers. They're going to find that there's thousands of doctors now who are very happy that their patients are on a low carbohydrate diet. And there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people just like you out there in the world. And once they see, oh, this is not just one person, this is hundreds of thousands of people who are using this dietary strategy, which I've come to call the proper human diet. They're using this, and all of their chronic medical conditions are either improving or just going away. That's weird. I need to do some research. Now, that's one style of doctor. The other style of doctor is, when it comes to being a student, their brain is closed for business. They've learned all they need to know, in their opinion. They don't care about any of that kind of stuff. They just know that there's a brand new prescription pill or injection that the attractive drug rep was just in their office telling them about when they brought lunch, maybe some bagels and donuts too. And that's what you're going to get. You're either going to get that or you're going to get the highway. And so you'll be able to pretty quickly feel your doctor out depending on how long your relationship is with him or her. And you'll know they're not going to listen to this. Or, no, I don't know, I'm going to give them a try. They may be open to this. And so once you watch that video and know that there's a low carb doctor an hour or 2 hours, 3 hours down the road, you know you got an option. And then you can have a honest yet respectful conversation with your doctor and say, look, I believe this is the right way for human beings to eat. If you're okay with that, if you're okay learning about this, then I love you. I'd like to stay with you. But if you're not open to this, I will 100% fire your ass and drive 2 hours to see this doctor that I found. It's up to you. But I'm giving you the option. The ball's in your court if you're willing to look into this and work with me on this. But if you want to be my medical daddy or my medical dictator, I'm not interested in that relationship any longer, and I will break up with you. Okay?
Good job.
Let's do some questions.
Hi, Dr. Berry.
Hello.
First of all, I'm from Tennessee. I'm Cindy, and I had heard or read that you were from Waverly, and I hope that you weren't affected by the flood. 2 questions. First one was about the intermittent fasting. If you're doing the intermittent fasting, can you have stevia while you're still doing the intermittent fasting? And number
Yep.
2, on one, you can have stevia?
No.
Okay.
Nothing in life that simple, Cindy.
And then on one of your videos, you talked about changing your palate. How do you do that?
Yep, great. So we're in Benton County, which is the next county over from Waverly. So we were not affected by the flooding at all here, but we lost a very, very close friend who was swept out of his house and found 2 or 3 miles down the small creek that had turned into a raging river. And he lost his life, and his wife was severely injured, and her mother was also injured. And so our hearts were broken by the flood, but we weren't physically affected here. So question number 1, I'm doing intermittent fasting. Some people say stevia is fine in my fasting coffee or my fasting liquid. Some people say it's not fine. What's the truth? So there are people who, and I think all people, when they first start keto, I think stevia is 100% better than sugar or honey or agave nectar because there's no carbohydrates. So in that respect, I think it's great for everybody starting keto. But what many of us find, and I don't know if Cindy's in this boat or not, but I found that after a certain point, the stevia slowed down my fat loss. And there is some research about something called the cephalic phase insulin response. And what this means is, in this study, they would let people swish saccharin water. And saccharin, to me, doesn't even hardly taste sweet, but it's very sweet for some people. But just the act of swishing saccharin water in their mouth for 30 seconds or a minute raised their insulin. They didn't even swallow it. They spit it out. Okay? So, and what we think is we're hardwired when we taste sweetness in our mouth. Our body thinks, oh, here comes some sugar, because in nature, there is nothing that tastes sweet that's not filled with sugar, right? Think about avocados. Think about mangoes and strawberries. If it tastes sweet, honey, it's going to have sugar. And so our body's immediately getting prepared to put that sugar where it needs to go by raising our insulin. So I think some people, it doesn't affect them that much. But some people, it affects them very much, up to the point where it stalls their weight loss. And so if you were doing great with keto and now your weight loss has been stalled for months, the non-nutritive sweeteners like stevia and monk fruit, that may be what has stalled your weight loss, because you may be one of those people whose insulin level goes up high enough with stevia that you make it almost impossible for your body to burn fat. And I found after a certain point in my keto journey that's where I was at. And so I never put sweetener in my coffee. I never really add sweetener to anything, except on my birthday and anniversary. I'll have a keto cheesecake with some stevia. So twice a year, I'll have some stevia. And that works great for me. Is that necessary for everyone? Probably not. But that is something that you can experiment with as a citizen scientist, because that's what you are now, doing dietary experiments. And so if you're stalled out, then that'd be a great experiment is let's go 30, 60, 90 days with no sweeteners whatsoever and see if that makes a difference. Then the second question, changing your palate. Now, Beckett, my 22-month-old beautiful little boy, he's not going to have to worry about this because we have not trained him to love junk food. He doesn't know what Lucky Charms taste like. Right? The first bite of food he ever had was the remnants of a beef rib that I'd eaten most of the meat off, and I handed it to him. So his palate has developed what I would say is normally, because the first foods in his mouth are meat. And so he immediately loved it because it's delicious. But if for the first few years of his life, if we'd given him all the Lucky Charms and all the honey buns and all the just pure shit that people give their children, not knowing better, then his palate would not have developed to like all the subtle flavors in meat and in vegetables, right? And so now what do you do with someone who's 5 years old or 25 or 55, who their entire life, all they've eaten is highly processed junk? The closest thing they've ever gotten to real food is breaded chicken strips with ketchup. What do you do with somebody like that? Well, just like we're all still athletes, if you start lifting weights, your muscles will get stronger. That's 100%. We all know this. If you start taking piano lessons, you will develop some degree of proficiency at playing the piano, even though previously you didn't know how to play it at all. You'll at least be able to play Mary Had a Little Lamb or something. So just as your brain and your muscles are still trainable, your palate is still trainable. Right now, the only 3 flavors you may be able to taste are sweet, salty, chicken nuggets, and ketchup or honey mustard. That may be all you can taste. But as you move into the keto sphere, you'll start to find vegetables you never knew you liked, that you like. And then months later, you'll retry a vegetable that you used to hate. And you'll be like, that wasn't half bad, actually. That was pretty tasty. You'll come to enjoy savory foods when used to really the only enjoyment you got was eating sweet foods. And many people start off with low carb, then they go to keto and they just keep getting rid of sweet stuff. They keep getting rid of sweet stuff. And then all the breading goes, and then all the grains are gone. They don't even need that stuff anymore. And all of a sudden they're happy with this plate that's filled with fatty meat and a little veg. They're like, I freaking love this stuff. And that's what happens. And we've got people now. And so my latest thing to try to get everybody to love is liver, whether it's chicken liver. I know, right? But people are like, dude, I took your advice and I made this chicken liver pate or whatever that Nisha had on her YouTube channel, and I freaking hated it. I gave it to the dog, and the dog loved it, but I hated it. But 6 months later, they tried again. They're like, it's tolerable. 6 months later, they tried again. It's like, that wasn't half bad. And before long, they're like, I made that liver pate again, and I freaking love that stuff now. And that you've got to keep, just like with a child, you get them to try some broccoli. They're like, bleh, because they're used to Pop-Tarts and they're used to honey sugar smacks. But then when they're a teenager, all of a sudden they're scarfing down the broccoli. You're like, what happened? Their palate developed, and they were able to taste those hidden flavors because you got the sugar out of their mouth. And that's what can happen to all of us, regardless of your age. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Randy. I'm a keto coach.
Nice.
Hi. So first off, you are carnivore. That's correct.
Yep.
So do you ever eat vegetables?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, on my birthday and on anniversaries, there's a restaurant that makes like fried Brussels. They like cook the Brussels sprouts so they're really crispy, and I love those things. And every now and then, well, like we've got a pear tree out in the yard, and when the pears are ripe, me and Beckett, we ate a pear together. And so like occasionally I'll have plants. I'm not anti-plant at all. I just know that for me personally, if I want to stay 230 pounds or less, it needs to be all meat for me. Meat and eggs. That's what and a little bit of cheese here and there, real full fat, real not processed, but fermented cheese. And if I stray from that, I'll be 232, 235, 238. And then here we go back to the direction I never want to go again. And so for me personally, I have to eat on a daily basis as close to zero carb as I can get. But yeah, occasionally I'll have when our blueberry bushes had blueberries. Me and Beckett every morning he would get up and I would change his diaper and he'd say, "Let's go check the blueberries." And that was our morning ritual until the last blueberry was gone. And he ate the heck out of them, but we won't have any blueberries again until next year. And I think that mimics how we've lived on this planet for millions of years. But for me personally, I can't eat too many carbs, regardless of how clean, how one ingredient they are, or I'll start to fatten. And I don't think all you guys are like that. I think some people can do a vegetable filled keto diet and just make sure that you're eating some eggs and fish and meat and you're fine. But for others of us, I think we have to turn down that carbohydrate intake knob as close to zero as we can get it. And that's why I don't want any of us, whether you're keto, low carb, carnivore, ketovore, don't be an apostle for your particular diet. Understand that there's a carbohydrate intake range for all of us, and some of us can eat way more carbs and still, for all intents and purposes, be very healthy. Others of us cannot do that. And so don't be apostolic about a certain diet. Realize that we all, even though we're 99.99% the same, we all have these unique differences. And so, yeah, for me currently, carnivores is where it's at. And every now and then I'll stray back into keto. I'll start having some broccoli and asparagus and Brussels sprouts with Nisha. And before long, I see the scale starting to go. And I'm like, oh, no, not going there. And so then I turn the carbs back down. The scale comes right back down under 230.
Awesome. Well, I have one more question. This is about me. I'm perfectly healthy until 2 years ago, and I had an emergency right colectomy. So I've been on keto for 3 years, and I had an emergency right colectomy, and my surgeon and doctor were like, how did this happen? You have no autoimmune diseases. And then 3 weeks ago, I had my gallbladder removed. I've never had anything intestinal done. And I don't want to say, is keto doing this to me? But I kind of am just curious why you think those things would happen while I'm on keto.
Yep. So, and that's a great question. So here's the thing.
Oh, I lost 60 pounds.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so when something magical like that happens, you lost 60 pounds, although you tried every diet in the world, none of them worked, or you lost 20 and then gained back 25. Keto had what really felt like a miraculous benefit, right? And so all humans, regardless of how intellectual we are, we're magical thinking creatures. We can't help it. We're tribal. We believe in magic of some sort, even though some of us deny believing it. We all believe in that stuff, and we're all looking for that magical answer. And so when you find something that works seemingly by magic, like keto or carnivore, you believe that nothing can go wrong if you're eating this diet. Everything's going to get better if you're eating this diet. But that's obviously not the case. That's not true. We're still human beings. We are still mortal. Things are going to happen. Bad things are going to happen. People eating keto for 25 years, some of them are going to get cancer. Some of them are going to have a heart attack. Some of them, bad things happen to all humans eventually. Eventually, we all die. What keto and carnivore does is it loads the dice in your favor. It changes the odds of bad things happening to you. It doesn't make those bad things impossible, but it decreases your risk of having that heart attack and that stroke and developing dementia. Because when you're eating the slow poisons that are the standard American diet, you're increasing your risk of those bad things happening. And we all have that uncle who, smoked 6 packs of cigarettes a day and lived to be 99 years old. But he was lucky. He rolled the dice every day, and he rolled sevens instead of rolling snake eyes. Does that make sense? It doesn't mean that his lifestyle was healthy. It just means that he was lucky. And so there'll be people eating a ketogenic diet who roll snake eyes, and they have a gallstone, or they have cancer. But I don't think that eating a proper human diet makes all those things impossible. It doesn't make you bulletproof. Bullets still hurt. Had a lady in our Patreon group who got hit by a truck the other day. Broke her arm in 2 or 3 places, but the ER doctors were like, how are you not broken from top to bottom? So her eating a ketovore diet for the last 3 years strengthened her bones and her muscles and all of her ligaments and tendons, but it didn't make her bulletproof. She still got some broken bones, but she wasn't dead. And so I think that's what keto and carnivore does for us. It makes us much more resilient, much safer. The odds are much more in your favor that bad things aren't going to happen, but we're all mortal, and eventually that day's going to come, right? And so you have to understand what you're doing is you're changing the odds. You're loading the dice in your favor by eating a proper human diet. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. I'm Shannon, and I have rheumatoid arthritis. So the first person who told me to eliminate carbs was my rheumatologist, because I didn't want the drugs that would eventually, in less than 20 years, make me blind.
Yep.
So my question is, a lot of people suffer from keto rash, but here's my problem. Detoxing, mine is amplified because my inflammation in my joints come out through my skin, and so do my mother's, who's severely diabetic. So the itching and the rashes, they tried antihistamines and creams and all of these things, and nothing works, and it's intense, and we dig holes in our sleep and our skin where it itches. If you had anything topical or any suggestions, I'm already detoxing, but it's still agony. And then those wounds get infected when you dig them.
Yeah, exactly. And so a lot of people think that that's evidence of that you're detoxing, and that may very well be the case. Some people aren't convinced of that. If you're still taking any prescription medications, you always got to think about drug side effects, which can 100% of the time be rashes and skin problems. But I think if it is detoxing, then it has to be, by definition, it has to have an end date, right? Because at some point, when you haven't eaten crap for so many months and you've detoxed enough, all the toxins are going to be gone. And so if this rash continues, I definitely wouldn't just blindly blame it on detoxing because I'm on keto. I would go see a dermatologist and say, hey, and and anytime you go see a specialist for something like that, don't poison the well by telling them what you think or telling them what your doctor said. You're going to go in there and not tell them anything, just like, I got this crazy rash that won't go away. What do you think this is?
They prescribed the antihistamines and did biopsies on it.
And what did the biopsy show? Anything?
Oh, they're non-something granuloma. They're nothing. They call it nothing.
Yep. And non-specific granulomas like that can also be an autoimmune condition. And we already know you have rheumatoid. So anytime you have one autoimmune condition, you can very easily have a second or even a third, right? And so I wouldn't rule out that this is not a current autoimmune reaction that, again, is going to get better eventually. But right now, I understand it's torture. If you have a compounding pharmacy in your area, a lot of times for people like you, the antihistamines just don't help. And the other things that your doctor is going to knee-jerk prescribe for you just don't help. But if you'll go see a compounding pharmacist and tell them, look, I got this rash that's driving me nuts. Antihistamines don't help. All the creams and stuff they've given me don't help. Can you compound something? Because we have a good compound pharmacist here in Camden, and a lot of older folks, when they get to be in their 70s and 80s and 90s, they'll just itch, and nobody really knows why. We call it pruritus of senility, and it just means you're an old person and you itch all the time. And he could make a compound that would have 4 or 5 different things in it that would really help that. But none of my prescriptions worked. And so I started working with him to help people with these chronic severe itches, and it helped a lot. And so talk to a compound pharmacist and see what they have to offer. But I would say ultimately this is going to be short-lived. You're not going to have this forever. And if you do have it forever, it's going to get substantially better as you continue to eat a proper human diet. Hello, lady.
Hi, I'm Chris. How are you?
She said, you blabbered enough. I'm asking my question now.
It just came up. I want to say thank you so much to you and Nisha. You've changed my life and my family life. It's just, we appreciate you. I don't know. I've been following you I remember you guys in the movie theater parking lot.
Oh gosh, that was a long time ago.
Yes, it was. One, because you're carnivore, and I know that Nisha does ketovore mostly, is there any harm or stall increase when you go to like carnivore during the week and keto every weekend? Or should you do increments of 30, 60 days instead? Is there something that we should follow?
I think either way's fine. I think either way, and I know a lot of people who are carnivore through the week and keto, and on the weekends they cheat on carnivore with keto.
Okay. Yeah, right. That's what I was wondering.
And so
Yeah.
it's like their weekend mistress is keto, so they can have their Brussels sprouts and stuff. But I think if that works for your personality, I think that's a great way to do it. Some people have to be teetotalers and say, I'm not having any veg for 90 days. That's it, damn it. And that's how they have to do it to make it work for them. Because if they do have carbs on Saturday and Sunday, then their old carb addiction is back, and then they're having carbs on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday too. And so if you know you and you say, no, I can do that. I can have my keto friendly carbs on the weekend and then be carnivore or ketovore through the week, and I can do that. I think that's a very doable way to do it. But other people are tempted by that, and it starts to call up the old carb addiction, and then before you know it, they're having carbs every day. So I think either way is perfectly fine. I don't think there's any one set in stone way that's the best way to do this. I think we're all, because of the way we were raised and because of our current life and our stress levels, some people need to do it this way. Other people need to do it another way. And so whichever way works for you guys, I think that's perfect. The same goes for intermittent fasting as well. I do a daily intermittent fast every single day. It's 2:30, 8 p.m. here. I haven't eaten yet. I haven't broken my fast. Some days I'll go to 5 p.m. But other days I'll break it at 11:30. Just depends on what's going on, how I feel, what the family's doing. Because I don't want to be, the assholes like, no, I'm fasting. I can't have this, I don't want to be that guy. So sometimes I'll break it at noon when the families were having to get together or something. Other days I won't eat at all. If it gets to be 7 or 8 p.m. and I haven't eaten yet, I'm done. I'm going to fast until the next day. And sometimes that happens. And then other people have to do a 3-day fast just because of mentally where they are and who they are. That's how they have to do it. I'm going to eat keto and I'm fasting 3 days a week, every other week. Some people want to do a 7-day fast once a month. I think all those options are perfect for you. Whichever one works best for you, whichever one is sustainable, whichever one feels the most comfortable, whichever one doesn't piss off your spouse because you're right. You know what I'm saying? You got to think about all these things, your work schedule. What if you're a shift worker? Then what are you going to do? All those things matter, and you have to take all those into account as you are building a proper human diet schedule for your life, because ultimately that's what matters, is what's going to work for you and your world, because your world's different from mine.
Second question is, I see a functional medicine doctor. She is very pro vegetarian and plant based, but she understands, we've had discussions, she's willing to accept that keto works for me. And I have to have meat, just the way
Yep.
So, but my LDL was high. And so she asked if I would do a CAC score. We were in an area where there was grants and it was only $49. So it was great. It was zero. So she left me alone. She's like, fine, you're doing fine. But I was wondering, in that, is the 0%, does that measure, so I shouldn't have any buildup of plaque anywhere in my body, or is it just my heart, or is that the only place I need to be worried about it?
The CAC score just measures calcium buildup in the walls of the arteries in your heart. That's all it measures. Now, those are very important arteries, right? Because if you block a cardiac artery, you just had a heart attack. The other most important place is in the brain, but currently nobody's doing a brain artery score. But I think that probably would be a good idea to do that, because a stroke, that's pretty damn bad too. But there's no reason for us to believe that if your heart arteries are completely clean, and that's what a 0 score means. You may have some soft plaquing, but you don't have any calcium buildup in your heart arteries at all. That's very reassuring that the rest of your arteries are also great. Right. It's not 100% guarantee, but it's as close as you can get without scanning your entire body. That makes sense? I love it that you're teaching your naturopath, because that's what you're doing. Because in her mind, it's not possible to eat meat all the time and have a CAC of 0. You understand? She
I do.
believes that in her heart of hearts. And when she sees yours, she's going to be like, and she might be able to ignore yours, but what about the next ketovore? What about the next carnivore? After she's seen several of you guys, she's going to reassess what she believes, not what she knows. Because we don't really know anything. We just choose to believe stuff, right? She's going to reassess her beliefs about meat. And at some point, she'll start saying, well, if you're eating grass-fed, grass-finished, regeneratively raised meat, it's probably fine. But you understand that's a slippery slope, isn't it? Because once you start saying that, it's not but 2 or 3 more steps before a doctor's saying, fine, eat the damn bologna and hot dogs. I don't even care because it don't even matter. Right. And so that's wonderful that you're teaching her. One thing I'd like to caution everybody about is an allopathically trained doctor like me that went to just regular MD medical school. You got to watch them about the prescriptions, right? Because they will knee jerk and write you a prescription and not even think about it. Some naturopaths, you got to watch the supplements. You got to watch them because that's what they're trained to do. And you'll walk out of there with 18 different supplements that they just happen to sell. Right? And you think, well, they're just being greedy. Well, no, they believe in that. And yeah, they gotta pay for the Mercedes payment. Yeah, they got to make the payment. But at the same time, they believe those supplements are magical, that they're going to somehow literally perform magic in your body. And we're all rediscovering, you don't need many prescriptions. You also don't need many supplements either. And so I'm 100% pro naturopath. I think that a lot of their philosophies are wonderful, but you just got to not let them thoughtlessly send you out of their office with an armload of supplements. Yeah.
All right. Thank you
Yes,
so much.
ma'am.
I did drop your name, by the way, to her.
Oh,
So
cool.
if you ever
Excellent.
watch-
Yeah, she'll watch a couple of my videos and then she'll have the vapors and have to lay down for a minute. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Mindy, and before I go any farther, I just have to say thank you. It's because of your videos that has changed our family. Watching your videos, I found local support in Monica. I've lost 55 pounds. My husband lost 30. All of our kids are healthier. One kid needed to kind of thin out a little, and he's lost 15 pounds. So we've lost, as a family, about 100 pounds.
Just so all you guys know, that never gets old hearing that. Okay, that never gets old. That's why I do this. And that's, Nisha's the one that convinced me to start the YouTube channel. The first time she brought it up, I was still that haughty know-it-all doctor. I'm like, what the hell would a doctor do on YouTube? That's foolish. Seriously. Well, we got in a little fight about that. And she's like, fine, you go help 30 people a day in the clinic when you could be helping 3,000. Go ahead, big man. That's fine. And like any good husband, I initially ignored her. But then like any good husband, later on, I actually thought about what she said. I'm like, that's a good damn point. I can't really argue with that. So I started a YouTube channel. And Nisha's the one you need to thank because she's the one, otherwise I would 100% not be on YouTube at all. She's the one that talked me into it. I might say she bullied me into it, but I'm way bigger than her. So I can't blame her for that. But yeah, it never gets old hearing thank you. And that you changed my life and that you helped my entire family get healthier. What could make a good doctor happier than hearing those words? You're going to make me cry. Ask your question.
I was going to say diabetes runs in our family. All of my cousins, uncles, you name it, almost all of them have struggled with diabetes. And my numbers are unbelievable, which goes into my question. About 6 months ago, I had lots of rashes and I have 2 lymph nodes in my neck that are swollen. And I went the regular medical route first, which just messed everything up because he put me on steroids and it was awful, terrible week. Anyway, so then I tried a natural doctor. They went through a whole bunch of tests and I found out a bunch of minor things. There were issues like low testosterone, a little bit slow thyroid, and that I'm vitamin D deficient. But the only thing that my natural doctor brought up was that I have high cholesterol. and it's at 400.
Yep.
And my triglycerides are really low and my inflammation is very low. But she basically said, you're going to have a heart attack in less than 5 years.
Oh my.
So I guess I need to find a keto doctor. But to kind of help ease my mind, I'm not going to die, right?
No. And I would counsel you to get a CAC score done. And in most larger communities, you don't even need a doctor's order. You can just go to the diagnostic imaging center and get it done for $100, $70, $120. And then you've got a CAC number. And if you wind up with a 0, like our friend had, you can tell your doctor to kiss your ass. Right? Because obviously I mean, your cholesterol's been high, I guarantee you, since you were 25 years old. And so you ought to be riddled. You ought to already be dead if LDL cholesterol is the demon that your doctor currently believes it is, right? You should have died 5 years ago, but you haven't. And if you wind up with a CAC score of less than 100, you're going to be able to teach your doctor. Be like, the first time you checked my LDL, look back in your records, be like, it was 2003. So for the last 17, 18 years, my LDL cholesterol has been high every day, but yet my arteries are clean. How do you come to grips with that, doctor? You'll make your doctor go, huh? And they'll of course put on their facade, be like, oh well, blah 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 blah. But when they get home, that's when your doctor's going to think about what you said, just like I thought about what Nisha said. They're going to be like, yeah, how the hell is that possible? Her LDL's been high since 1999, but yet her arteries are clear. How do I settle that with what I currently believe to be true? And so, no, you're not going to die. As a woman, it's very protective to have an elevated total cholesterol. And even I think the LDL cholesterol is going to turn out to be healthy and protective as well. And many, many doctors don't even talk about, well, any good doctor that's worth a damn, they're not even going to mention high total cholesterol. If any of you guys, if your doctor freaks out because your total cholesterol is high, that's a huge red flag. You just need to find another doctor because they're 15, 20 years behind on their reading.
So even
if they care about your LDL cholesterol still being high, they're pretty current with their reading, but unless they totally ignore your very low triglycerides and ignore your high HDL and ignore your normal A1C and ignore your normal C-peptide. If they ignore all that and focus only on the LDL, that's a big red flag. But if they're like, well, your LDL's sky high, but all these other things are amazingly perfect, they can only see that so many times and see you for return visits and you still ain't dead yet until they're going to go, man, there's more to this story than just high LDL, because most doctors that they 100% believe in their heart of hearts that an LDL as high as yours is lethal. My LDL is 250. And any doctor's going to be like, holy crap, dude, you're going to die. And they mean that, like I said earlier, from the goodness of their heart. They truly believe that. But it's going to take hundreds of patients with high LDL and 0 CACs before they're like, I got to go back and look at all this again. Something's not adding up here.
Yeah, so 400, I shouldn't be worried about that.
Yeah, get your CACs checked, and if it's under 100, you are good to go. All that high LDL has not caused any blockages, and that's what LDL is supposed to do, right? Is lead to severe blockages in your heart arteries, a heart attack, and your death. And if you don't have those severe blockages, then something else is going on here. And there are tons of hypotheses about elevated LDL. One hypothesis is that it's dangerous. That's just one hypothesis that's been very popular for the last 3 decades. But there are other hypotheses out there that no, you need that. Your body's doing that for a reason, because not all of us can eat enough fat to make our LDL elevate. Some of you guys have a normal LDL, even on keto or carnivore, and you literally could just drink bacon grease by the gallon, and you still couldn't make your LDL cholesterol go up because it's just not how your biochemistry is wired. And so at that point, you can no longer say, well, eating or drinking cholesterol and saturated fats bad for you because obviously this person is drinking a gallon of bacon grease a day and their LDL is still normal. So you can't say that anymore. And that's why the American Heart Association has stopped saying that dietary cholesterol is dangerous. It's no longer in their guidelines. They're pulling away from saying that even saturated fat's bad for you. They're pulling away from that, no longer saying that. So at some point we have to say, well, why is it that a third of people, when they eat a proper human diet, their LDL cholesterol is higher than we think we want it to be? And that's when there's going to be a new hypothesis that's going to come out and say, oh, actually in women, they need a higher total cholesterol. They need a higher LDL, but it protects them from cancer. It protects them from dementia. It protects them from all these things. Women with high LDL cholesterols live longer than women with very low LDL cholesterols. There's a reason for that. If LDL is lethal, like your doctor currently believes, then that data shouldn't exist, should it? 100% of any woman with a LDL over 200, she should be dead within 5 years. But the problem is they're not only are they not dying quicker, they're living longer. So we've obviously need to go back to the drawing board and figure out what's going on. But I am not worried about my LDL of 250, and I'm not worried about your LDL of 400.
You're gonna live.
You're going to live.
Always fire. My other question, any suggestion about the swollen lymph nodes or?
Yeah, none of you guys ever need to ignore a swollen lymph node. And that's not to say that it's 100% of the time cancer or deadly, but lymph nodes swell for a reason. They never just do that for the heck of it, okay? So you're going to make sure you're working with a doctor you trust, and you're going to let them keep an eye on those lymph nodes. And at some point, they may even want to do a biopsy of one of those lymph nodes, like a needle aspiration to get some of the cells in that lymph node. So, and that should happen within a year of you reporting a swollen lymph node that doesn't go back to normal. And there may be a good explanation for it. They're in your neck. Are they towards the front or towards the back, or?
Both are like right here.
Yeah. Now, has a doctor told you that they're swollen, or do you just think they're swollen? Because a lot of people, when they go from being a person who never thinks about health to being very health conscious, you start checking shit, right? You just start checking everything. Like, whoa, what's that right there? Because it's normal. Everybody in the room behind you, they have lymph nodes. And if you start feeling their neck, you're like, ooh, there's a lymph node. That's normal. You're supposed to have them under your arms and your groin and your neck. Your neck, you got hundreds of lymph nodes in your neck. That's normal. The fact that you can feel it may still be normal. But you need to talk to your doctor and say, is this lymph node normal, or is it enlarged and I need to worry about this? Because 9 times out of 10, they're going to be like, no, that's normal. That's nothing to worry about. And then you can quit worrying about that. But I love it that you're interested, but don't immediately, you see how you use that word enlarged?
Right.
You just assume. Yeah, but just because you can feel a lymph node doesn't mean it's enlarged. It's probably normal. I wish I could reach through the television screen and put my hands on your lymph nodes, but I can't. But have your doctor check them, and if your doctor says, no, they feel fine to me, it's nothing to worry about, then quit worrying about it.
Yeah, do your arms again, do your hands again.
Oh, yeah.
Touch the screen.
Put your hands on the Zoom call.
Like, I know this sounds crazy, but is it just I lost that much weight and now it feels different there?
Absolutely, could be that. It could, and so it could be. Let me just tell you, you may have a salivary gland that's a little inflamed. That'll make your lymph node swell. You may have a tooth that's got a tiny cavity in it. That can make your lymph node swell. You may have bit down on you may have had a piece of gristle in your steak and it cut your gum. That'll make your lymph node swell. Like, there are hundreds of things that can make a lymph node swell. 99% of the time, it's nothing to worry about, but that 1% of the time, it can be real damn bad. That's why I want you to let your doctor check your lymph nodes, and then you can know, okay, we're going to monitor this. We're going to get a needle biopsy, or your doctor says, no, those are perfect, normal. Don't worry about it. But yeah, if you're super fluffy, you definitely can't feel your lymph nodes. And then as the fluff goes away, you're like, whoa, what's that? Yeah, that happens.
It's like, those are bones? Thank you so much.
Yes.
Hi, my name's Lindsay.
Hi.
And thank you too. I've watched every YouTube live and almost every video, and thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you.
My question, do you have any advice on getting teenage children to eat healthier without causing them to have disordered eating or causing them to be self-conscious about their weight?
Yep. Great question. So,
Especially girls, teenage girls.
yeah, how old are your girls?
Well, they're 9 and 12.
9 and
Almost.
12. Do they have a driver's license?
No.
Do they have a credit card?
No.
Okay, excellent. So we're off to a great start. So first and foremost, let's be 100% aware that you are 100% responsible for every piece of food in the house. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. So now, the second thing I want you to comprehend is that you do not want to be a food dictator. You do not want to say, this is a keto house by God, and I'm never where that's it. No ultimatums. That's the kind of stuff that might lead to disordered eating. However, I'll have to tell you guys, I don't think you can create an eating disorder by feeding your children real food. I don't think that's possible, but that's my personal belief. So with that being said, what I would recommend, and what I actually did with the Berry girls, I have 3 girls who are now all grown. But when I was starting to discover, man, diet really matters, they were like 6, 7, and 9 years old. And so what I did is every time I would go to the grocery, I would forget the Lucky Charms, but I would remember to get some blueberries. And when Madison Berry's like, where are the Lucky Charms? I'd be like, oh shit, I forgot to get them, but I got some blueberries, right? So it wasn't a fight. It wasn't an ultimatum. It wasn't me putting my foot down. It was just, oh, I forgot the Lucky Charms, but we got other stuff. See if there's anything else you want. And so every time you go to the grocery, you're going to buy more real food, more proper human food, and less junk. And you're going to do that over 6 months because kids are much more metabolically resilient than adults, right? I mean, the average kid can live on Cheetos and Lucky Charms and Pepsi and still be relatively healthy. Not every kid, but some kids. And so every time you go, you're going to buy less crap and more real food. And you can do that literally over the course of a year. And don't even say, just say, I forgot. Oh, I forgot the Oreos. Crap. But I do have some of this or that or the other. And if they're hungry enough, they'll eat what you got. If they're not hungry enough, guess what? They can go outside and play. Ain't no kid ever starved to death from missing a meal, right? And that way there's no, because you definitely don't want there to ever be judgment. Honey, you're overweight. Never do you want to say those words. Ever, right? Because then that's where the self-consciousness comes from. 99.9% of the time, in my opinion, and I'd like Cindy's opinion on this, being self-conscious about your body comes from your parents and your siblings 99.99% of the time. And it's usually a well-intentioned, loving mother who's being overly protective and they're not meaning to be judgmental, but you know, when your mom's like, here, honey, only eat 3 Cheetos because I don't want you to eat too many, what's the take-home message there? Oh, I must be fat. Kids aren't stupid, right? But when you've got a pantry full and a fridge full of real human food, and you never put a portion limit, ever. If they want to eat all the bacon, let them eat all the bacon. If they want to eat all the pork chops, let them eat all the steak. Let them eat, because kids are growing, they're hungry. And if they need to feed their hunger, it's not normal to deny their hunger, right? And so if you do any kind of calorie counting or portion control, in my opinion, that's what leads to the eating disorders 100% of the time. What leads to the body being overly conscious of your body is the loving yet judgmental, honey, you don't need a second plate. Honey, you don't need seconds, right? But I'm still hungry. Well, I know, but right? Then you start doing all this crap. That's going to lead to body positivity issues. That's going to lead to eating disorders. But if you've got a pantry full of real food and a fridge full of real food, they get to eat till they're full. That's the beautiful thing about this proper human diet. You never, especially for a growing child, you never have to monitor how much they eat, and you never have a comment on how much they eat. You don't have to, because real food is going to trigger their satiety hormones. When they've eaten enough, guess what? They're going to quit and go outside and play. Does that make sense? And so I would transition over 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, but I would never be judgmental. I would never pass judgment. I would never do any of that stuff. Just have a kitchen full of real food and let them go at it.
Hello.
Hello.
First of all, I'm Darcy. I'm Monica's one of her coaches. And I guess I'm her sister too.
Oh, okay, okay.
So she would like to know, first of all, if you have a little bit more time for us, or if you need to cut it short. We have a couple more people.
Let's
Okay.
go.
And we'd also like to take a photo with you before we go. Is that
Yep.
all right?
Sure.
Okay. So my question is also along with the skin line. I've been keto now for 2 years. When I grew up all my life, I had eczema, psoriasis, keratosis, all that junk. When I went keto, my keratosis went away. I noticed my scalp was not as like dandruffy.
Yep.
But now I'm noticing the fact, like I watched your video, I'm like, okay, I'm keto and I'm still having this issue. What could be my problem now?
Yep.
It's more of like seasonal. So I'm wondering if it's allergy. So then I also changed topical things because I know that our skin is also a giant organ that absorbs the toxins.
Yep.
So what would your opinion for my next step to be?
Yeah, so my opinion for your next step is for you and everybody in this room to realize that there is no product that you can buy at the pharmacy that in any way improves your skin ever. That is 100% horseshit.
Yeah.
I don't care how much it costs. I don't care how exclusive it is. I don't care who the model was that was in the commercial. There is no skin product that can improve your skin from the outside. But what many of those products can do is irritate your skin, is cause inflammation in your skin, is cause it to keep you from sloughing off the dead squamous cells like you should be sloughing them off. Another thing that people think is that they have to clean their skin every day. I've got to wash every inch of my body with soap. And I don't believe that's true. I think soap is meant for pits and bits, and that's it. Unless you're stinky, unless you're like me and you've been out with the chainsaw for 3 hours, I need to wash my whole body because I smell like a dead carcass, right? But on a daily basis, if you have an office job and you haven't gotten sweaty in the last week, why are you soaping up and then rinsing and then repeating? Why are you doing that? That's going to irritate your skin. Your skin does not need you to do that, right? It's just like hair. So many of us, when we rethink our relationship with food, we kind of start rethinking our relationship with everything. Shampoo's one of them. Why are you shampooing, rinsing, and then repeating? Why are you doing that every single day of your life? Do you really need to do that? Or are you just a walking salesperson for the shampoo company? Many people, when they cut back on the products they put on their skin and in their hair, they notice it gets better, right? So I would say any product you're putting on your skin, you need to re-examine that. What I found, the two best things for the human skin is beef tallow and coconut oil. If you're putting anything on your skin that's not one of those two, you're probably irritating your skin. Okay, any fragrance, any additives, any coloring, all that stuff can irritate your skin. Number two, your keto, which you're still eating some plants. There's probably a plant that you're eating that is causing some borderline irritation and inflammation in your skin. Not enough to show itself. Does that make sense? But just enough to have that underlying inappropriate inflammation. And then when the season hits, that's the thing that pushes you over the edge. And then you start having skin symptoms. Does that make sense? What I would do if I were you, unless it just sounds repulsive, is I would do 90 days of meat and eggs. 100% carnivore for 90 days. And you can do 30 if you don't want to do 90. But 90 is really the test. Because what I predict is that your skin will be the best it's been in your entire life after that 90 days. But then you've done an elimination diet, haven't you?
No, I
And
haven't
then-
yet.
But I'm saying after that,
Yes,
after that 90 days of carnivore, that's the ultimate elimination diet.
right.
And then you can add back in broccoli and see what happens. Then you can add back in whatever and see what happens. Add some blueberries, see what happens. Because then your system will be so pure and pristine that you'll have immediate inflammation in your skin when you find one of those things that you should have been avoiding but you didn't know. And you be like, okay, never again will I'll eat avocado or whatever it happens to be. And so then you'll wind up with a list of 50 or 60 keto foods that don't bother your skin at all, but you'll have a list of 4 or 5 you need to avoid, or your skin will start to flare up.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
We have how many more? Two more people, and then we'll take a photo.
Okay, great.
Hi, I'm Barbara. Thank you for
Hello.
sharing your time with us.
Absolutely.
Would you speak on the pros and cons of fasting, or are there only pros?
Yeah, I think there are pretty much only pros to fasting. If you get carried away with fasting, it's just like anything else. There could be negative repercussions. Everybody says, "Oh, drinking water is good for you." Well, what if you just went nuts and started drinking 12 gallons a day? More's not always better, right? There's a U-shaped curve of water. If you don't drink enough, you'll get dehydrated. If you drink when you're thirsty, that's perfect. But if you think, oh, well, if a little water is good, more's better, and I'm going to drink 12 gallons a day, you're going to develop electrolyte abnormalities. You're going to have heart palpitations. You could have a stroke. All kinds of terrible things could happen if you drink too much water. Fasting, I think of fasting as water. It's just as natural for the human body to fast as it is to take a sip of water. Now, if you're not happy with your current body fat percentage, in other words, you still got fat you want to lose, fasting is your most powerful tool. Nothing works better than fasting. And that can be daily intermittent fast. That can be a 3-day fast once a week. That can be a 7-day fast once a month, whatever style you want to do. Fasting is the closest thing we'll ever come to magic when it comes to burning fat, when it comes to replacing old damaged cells with new vibrant healthy cells, when it comes to replacing old damaged mitochondria with new vigorous vibrant mitochondria. Nothing does it like fasting. One of the reasons that keto is so powerful is that it is a fasting mimicking diet, and a lot of people have forgotten that or never learned it. The original reason that they thought that keto worked so well was because it mimicked the benefits of fasting. Because when you're eating low carbs, you're not spiking your insulin. So it mimics fasting in that regard. And so I think that fasting is very powerful. Now, when you get down close to your ideal body weight, I don't think you need to do longer fasts, unless you've got excess skin that you want to tighten up. Then you can use fasting as a tool for that. Or if you've got some other specific problem that you want to use fasting for, I think it's a powerful tool. Not many things are more powerful than fasting. But when you've reached your ideal body weight, your skin's great, everything's great, I don't think you need to do a 7-day fast anymore. You may still enjoy it and love the mental benefits, in which case you can do it. I think fasting's fine, but I don't think unless you're doing just an insane amount of fasting, I think it's hard to make fasting dangerous. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Dr. Barry. I'm Paula. Thank you for your time today.
Yes.
I'm gonna piggyback off of that. Should you vary your times? Like, does your body get used to, like, say I eat at 2 o'clock every day? Should you vary that so your body doesn't get used to exactly the fasting times? Or is that kind of not true?
Maybe, and that's final.
Okay.
So
And then-
maybe it makes perfect sense. Just like for athletes, if they do this, athletes who are trying to be competitive, if they do the same workout every day, it seems like the human body gets used to that. And that's where the whole concept of cross training came from. It's like, okay, you're trying to be really good at volleyball. Well, you need to go out and play tug of war and do CrossFit and lift weights. That'll actually, even though that's not directly applicable to volleyball, it'll make you a better volleyball player. So it seems like exercise confusion, muscle confusion helps athletes. So in that regard, I think there's a good argument to be made that you should probably switch up how you fast. Do intermittent for a while, and then every now and then throw in a 3-day fast. Or if you do a 3-day every 2 weeks, then do a longer one, or start doing a 20-hour daily fast and switch it up. Some of us get bored, and some of us don't like to think about things. So if you're somebody who gets bored, then switch it up so you're not bored. But if you're somebody who just doesn't want things to work and don't think about it, like me, I do a 18 to 22 hour fast every day. That's just what I do. When I am out on my pasture and I'm like, damn it, I'm hungry, that's when I break my fast. Not until, right? Other people, that would drive them crazy to do that. They've got to have a structure, and they've got to have a time and a start and a stop and all that. I think you let your own personality be your judge, but there may very well be some benefits from changing it up. I don't think we know the answer definitive to that yet, and that's why I said maybe.
Thank you. And then I have hypothyroidism. I take levothyroxine.
Yep.
And I've lost over 100 pounds in the last 3 years.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So do my meds break a fast? And should you be able to not take your meds after you've lost weight, or is that a whole different?
Good. Yes, good question. So I'm not a big fan of levothyroxine, which is synthetic T4. It's fake T4. It's not real, right? So it's a little bit different molecularly than real T4. For most people, it seems to work fine, but I think there are some of us who do much better with a desiccated thyroid, like Armor Thyroid or Nature or NP or WP, because it's real T4. It also contains T3, it contains T4, it contains T2, which you probably have never heard of. It also contains T1 and T0, which you probably never heard of. It also contains calcitonin, which you may not know what that is. But all those things are important. And if you're just getting fake T4, for many of us that with hypothyroid, that's why our weight loss is not going as quickly as we'd like for it to, or you stalled for a long damn time. It's because you need real T3 and T4, and you're not getting it from levothyroxine. With that being said, I don't think levothyroxine breaks your fast.
So would you go to a specialist?
Go ahead.
Would you recommend a specialist then? I've just been to a general.
Well, if you go to a specialist, you're 100% going to get Synthroid, because they definitely don't believe in the desiccated. Go call your local pharmacist. Okay. And ask them who prescribes Armor or Nature in this community, and they'll say, "Oh, that's Dr. McGillicuddy. He's the only one in town." Then you're going to go see Dr. McGillicuddy and say, "Look, I'm taking levothyroxine. What's your dosage?"
I'm sorry, I don't know that.
Oh, okay. And you're going to tell him, "I take levothyroxine, and what strength." I want to try desiccated thyroid, and I know you prescribe it. My doctor won't prescribe it. I just want to try it for a few months and see if I feel better taking that. And not everybody, but a lot of people, when they do that, and the doctor converts them to the appropriate dosage of desiccated thyroid, because a lot of docs, if they're not comfortable with it, they'll give you a little tiny dose, which is not nearly enough. So just say, for example, you're taking 100 of levothyroxine. You should be converted to at least 60 of Nature. That's the conversion. But a lot of docs will put you on 15 or 30 because they're not comfortable with it. They don't know enough about it, so they don't want to give you too much. So they wind up not giving you enough. Well, what's that going to do to you? That's going to make you more hypothyroid, isn't it? Because you're now not taking enough medicine. So then a lot of people are like, "Nah, desiccated didn't work for me at all. I tried it and I felt worse." That's because their doctor gave them a half-assed dosage, right? Okay. So there's actually a conversion chart you can look up online to convert from levothyroxine over to Armor or Nature. And then you can make sure you're taking the right dose. And then you can try it for 90 days and see how your fat burning does, see how you feel, see how you are mentally. But I don't think levothyroxine breaks a fast.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes. You're welcome.
Synthroid isn't the same. It's the same, right? Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
It actually has synthetic in the name, doesn't it? Yeah. That means it's fake.
Yeah. That was your question, right?
Yeah.
Make sure. Okay. Dr. Berry, these ladies in here would love to know, I would love to know how we can best support you, because you are the most gracious physician. You have done so much for us. And and frankly, we would like to give back to you. What is the best way we can do that? Just to say thank you.
There's two ways that you can help me. One's going to cost you a little money, and one's not going to cost you any money. I have a Patreon account, which is a private community, and we actually, Nisha and I do lots of extra lives in there every week because sometimes on our Facebook and YouTube videos there's 3,000 people and watching and asking questions, and so the odds of me getting to your question are slim. But in the Patreon community, we'll often have 30 people on a live or 100 people on a live. So we're going to answer every single question, and we're going to be able to answer it in depth, and then ask a question, and so really dig deep. So if you need that, then become a patron on patreon.com, and there's a link on all my Facebook and YouTube videos of how you can do that. It's super easy. You can do it for $3 a month. And there's higher levels too, that $5, $10, $20, whatever you want to do, but you can get your foot in the door for $3 a month, and you've got access to 2 additional live Q&As a week with not many people in it. So we can go into depth on your medications you're taking, on what conditions you have. So that's one option. The second option is to pull up your YouTube on your tablet or on your TV when you're getting ready to go to work, and go to my channel and put it on one of my playlists, and just let your cat watch it all day while you're at work. Because we get a little bit of ad revenue every time somebody watches a commercial or whatever, and your cat don't care if it's me or a commercial, right? So if that way, it doesn't cost you a penny, and while you're at work, you can be supporting the work we do basically for free. But you're basically letting the drug companies and the food manufacturers pay us to do what we do, because that's who advertises, right? And so yeah.
Well, as a coach, my heart is passionate for what we do and for seeing lives changed, and I just cannot thank you enough for taking your time to be here with us today. What I thought we would do, if it's okay with you, if we could get my coaching team up here with Asner, Cindy, and get our picture taken with you. You can give us bunny ears, whatever you want to do. That would be great. And then if anybody else, my mom will be back here taking pictures, and we'll just kind of do this thing virtually.
Definitely.
And hopefully next year you can be here in Indiana with us on
Yes.
the ground. That would be awesome.